Hello, thanks for tuning in, Stuart, the Unrepentant Atheist. The subject of this video is going to be how to deal with somebody who's into woo and what to do when they make statements that you basically don't agree with, and to distance yourself from their worldview and their way of thinking. Because I think it's important. There are so many people out there who've got religious beliefs, woo believers, etc., Christians, what have you, that you're bound to have at least one of them in your life somehow, either through an acquaintance or the circles that you mix in. It's going to happen, and you may well be faced with a situation where somebody makes a claim like, oh, well, we've all got to believe something. And then you've got to respond. You can either just let it go or respond to it. And in my case, at the moment, due to my own private circumstances, I've got some woo people in my life. And they're actually lovely people on the whole. They're nice people. They mean well. And, I've got nothing bad to say about them at all. However, we've got different worldviews. And it does very rarely anything crops up in conversation, because I just accept if people want to believe this stuff because it makes them feel good, I've got no problem with that. And but then again, if they're talking to me and they make claims or kind of put things in such a way that they think I'm on board with them, I want to distance myself from the way that they see things. I'm a very rational person. I don't accept any supernatural claims because I don't think I don't think the burden of proof has been met. I don't believe in any religions. I don't believe in any kind of any occult, paranormal, anything like that at all. So I don't think it's proven. I don't believe in sort of healing, like laying on of hands and nature spirits healing and any of that stuff. I don't believe in any of it at all. I'm not ruling it out. I'm not ruling it out. So don't accuse me of being closed-minded. If you can prove to me, if you can supply sufficient evidence, not 100% certainty, if you can provide enough evidence to convince me that it's true, I'll accept it. So, okay. So let me just tell you, one of these people in my life, she's a lovely lady. She's in her mid-50s, and we're just friends. We've got quite a good rapport. I previously had a bit of a laugh with her about, so I mentioned Dumbo's lucky feather. She laughed about that, and she said, oh yeah, that's probably what it is, with all this stuff that she's doing with tree spirits and, nature spirits and all that kind of stuff that, she's into shamanism and druids and, she feels grounded in nature. She uses that kind of language. And something happened fairly recently where I'm communicating with her on WhatsApp. I was at her place. There was a social event going on, and I noticed on her desk, it was only fleetingly noticed, there were some CDs, and the CD on top was a Johnny Cash CD. Now, I kept this in my memory. I often keep inconsequential, trivial things in my memory and actually forget important things. It's terrible. So I kept that in my memory. And the reason that it came back to my memory is that 2 days later, Matt Dillahunty was using Johnny Cash as an example in a point that he was making. And I suddenly thought, oh, I don't believe it, Okay, yeah. So this, well, okay, it's just a coincidence. I mean, I haven't even said or seen the name Johnny Cash probably for 30 odd years. And then I see it twice in 3 days. And I sort of provokingly sent her a message. And I'm just going to read out the conversation on WhatsApp, because I can't believe how it went after I brought up this. I thought she would just laugh it off, but it kind of went somewhere I didn't really want it to go. And I sent her a message because I wanted to just check my memory. Had I really seen that Johnny Cash CD on her desk? I sent her a message, do you listen to Johnny Cash? She replied, yes, there was a CD on my computer desk. I found a whole drawer full of CDs that came from the newspaper. But yes, Cash has a great voice. The Man in Black is a favorite. Okay. And then I replied saying, oh, it's funny, as I was watching this debate and blah, blah, blah. It's just a coincidence. Meaningless or what? And then she replied and she said, nothing and everything has meaning. Now, this is a kind of statement that I would never make, because it's a claim. It looks to me like a kind of contradictory claim. I mean, to be fair, she's got laughing emoticons next to it. But it's okay. Nothing and everything has me. I mean, um, look, there are different possibilities. Either everything has meaning. You could say that's one possibility. Nothing has meaning. That's another possibility. But they can't be both true at the same time, can they? Yeah. So it's a kind of contradictory thing, and it's a kind of, it's like sort of one hand clapping type nonsense, really. So I left that. I didn't really respond to that. And yeah, and then she moves on to say, oh yeah, because I said I was watching a debate on the resurrection. There was the Easter episode recently, and this atheist used Johnny Cash as an example. Yeah, okay. And then she mentioned some Gaia films, not too sure what they are. I should have researched that really. But there are some resurrection chambers apparently that she says that they were used for initiation. Disciples went into these chambers, into a deep meditative sleep for days, and then when they came out, they had revelations. Well, there are some claims, aren't there? And then she said, whatever you believe, magic faith, superconscience, life is but a dream. If many are gathered in the name and all that, what can we prove even with science? Better to exist, observe, and take part when the notion takes you. And then, yeah. Well, anyway, I probably should have just left it at that. But, there are too many claims in there, and there are too many, that's pointing to too many kind of, just accept beliefs that take your fancy without checking the evidence. And I don't go along with that, of course. She says here, better to exist, observe, and take part when the notion takes you. So she's saying, okay, exist, observe. Yeah. So she's sort of saying, look for evidence and then take part when the notion takes you. But that sounds more like if you have the whim for something, even if you haven't got the evidence, because it's not enough just to observe. You have actually got to assess what you observe. So she missed that out. If she'd said it's better to exist, observe, evaluate what you've observed, and reach a justified conclusion, that would have been different. But to say take part when the notion takes you, it sounds to me like, if you've got the fancy, if something feels good for you, then just go for it. And of course she says, what can we prove even with science? Well, I've got to respond to that. So I responded to that. I said, well, we know enough to put satellites in orbit and predict the next million years of solar eclipses, for example. And then I said, interesting about resurrection chambers. What revelations did they have as such? She never did respond to that. And I'm sure that she wouldn't do, because this is just something that she's read somewhere and passed it on. So yeah, about putting satellites in orbit and predicting the next million years of solar eclipses, she says, to be argumentative, I would say that's just math. Well, yeah, of course, maths is a tool of science, but it doesn't negate my point that we know a lot because of science, and we can be very confident that it's true. So she's saying, yeah, people who have been told they have stage 4 cancer won't ever walk again. They have defied science with faith, nature, and mind over matter. Well, they haven't really defied science, because science is not saying, when a doctor says you've got stage 4 cancer, you're going to die within 6 months. He's not definitively saying that that is going to be the case. He's saying that based on all the statistics we've got, this is your most likely outcome. Okay, so I responded to all this, of course. So she's talking about mind over matter, etc. Okay, this is me. Building satellites and placing them in orbit involves more than just maths. It involves many scientific disciplines in which maths is a tool. We know an incredible amount about time stretching back to the Big Bang. We know how elements formed and how life evolved and developed from simple beginnings. We have medical science and chemical engineering, genetic engineering. We can do what nature took millions of years to do. But even if we knew nothing from science, like 10,000 years ago, that would not validate belief in magic and gods. Okay, so I'm nailing my colors to the mast there. My worldview is not grounded in the effectiveness of science. It just isn't. My worldview is grounded in where the evidence leads, not where I want to lead the evidence, where the evidence leads, what we can be justified in accepting is true based on what the evidence says. That's what my worldview is grounded on. It's not grounded on intuition or accepting claims if the notion takes me, whatever my whim happens to be, what makes me feel good. Okay, and then I address what she says about terminal cancer. Yes, people do bounce back after terminal diagnoses. Disease can go into remission. Maybe that is mind over matter. Maybe the body just healed itself, which we know can happen, or some other reason. So I leave it open, and that's what I do. I leave things open. I don't rule things out unless it can be demonstrated that something can be ruled out. I only rule things in if there's evidence to support it. If it's mind over matter claim on cancer, I'm going to want some evidence for that. Okay. Okay, and then I say, yeah, that does not mean, of course, that magic, gods, and these beliefs are not true. It's important to say that with any woo believer, because they say, oh, you're closed-minded, you're just ruling everything out. No, I'm not ruling everything out, but I need evidence to rule things in. It's as simple as that. Of course, they'll still say you're closed-minded, but what can you do? All right, so anyway, she's responded to me and she says, I could argue that unless you have tested these theories yourself. No, it's not that she could argue, she is arguing it. This is the dishonesty. I'm disappointed in her actually. This is the dishonest strategy that woo believers and religious people use when they realize they're up against a critical thinker, somebody who can properly assess evidence, and somebody who only believes in things if there is sufficient evidence to believe them. This is what you get. You get dishonesty. So she's saying, I could argue. No, she is arguing this, that unless you have tested these theories yourself, that all you see and hear cannot be proven. You believe it. You see a picture as far as you know. Huge communities of scientists have done all these things. I'm just being devil's advocate. No, she's not. This is more dishonesty. This is what she actually believes. This is her position. Otherwise, why say it? I mean, she's somebody who has got a staff that she picked up on an old island where there used to be a monastery. And she found this staff. She said it was like calling out to her. She whittled it and she preserved it. And she takes it along to her shaman meetings. No, she actually believes in this stuff. And it's so dishonest to pretend that, oh, I'm just being argumentative, just being devil's advocate. God, that's so bloody dishonest. Okay, so she's saying you can't actually prove anything outside of your own mind, hence life is but a dream. Oh my God, what nonsense. It's like 1984, you only know what you've been fed by the media. Oh my God, she's not a conspiracy theorist as well. Yeah, you only know what you've been fed by the media and books and other human beings, which if you get a lot of them together who all agree, does that make it real? Oh God, all these fallacies. This is like a tangled web, so many knots in this web, and you know, it's up to me to unravel it all. Oh God. Okay, this is me, and here we go. Yes, I can't prove that the gravitational forces as calculated by Newtonian physics is what is claimed. And the reason I can't do that is I'm not that much good at maths. However, I can be reasonably confident, given how I know science operates, that it is quite accurate. If I did not have this confidence, I would never take medicines, I would never get into a car or fly in a plane. Certainty and absolute proof is not needed, only justifications for confidence that something is true. Theists often use your argument to justify their beliefs in God. They will say, if we can't prove anything, all beliefs are equally valid. No. Belief in scientific discoveries is rationally justified. Belief in spirits of nature is not. I said that because I know that that's what she believes. You can't even prove anything in your own mind. How do you know if your dreams... Yeah, because she says we can only prove what's in our mind. Well, can we? I mean, we might be able to prove it to ourselves, although we could be deceiving ourselves. If I've got a pink elephant in my mind, how do I prove to somebody that I've got a pink elephant in my mind? I could be lying, I could be hallucinating in my mind, or any one of a number of different possibilities. You can't even prove what's in your own mind. Yeah, okay. Yeah, so I say to her, you can't even prove anything in your own mind. How do you know? Yeah, but it doesn't matter. It is easier to establish scientific facts than the reality of what is happening in your head. What is going on in your head cannot be objectively measured and tested. Actual thoughts and images. Yeah, I know, because she might come back and say, oh, we've got EEGs. We can see. No, all the EEG tells you is how much electrical activity is in the brain. There's no device on earth that can tell you what you're thinking or can see the images in your mind. So, yeah, no, it doesn't matter. It is easier to establish scientific facts than the reality of what's happening in your head. Okay. Yeah, I wasn't there when dinosaurs existed, but I believe they did exist. We have fossils. I can confidently claim that dinosaurs did indeed exist. I'm pushing back all the time against her doubts in science by demonstrating to her how reliable science is. Like, I'm pretty sure she believes in dinosaurs too. We've got the fossils, we've got the evidence. That's justified. But her belief that if she hugs a certain tree, it will make her better, that's not justified. Okay, so this is me again. In determining what is true and not, one has to sift carefully through the evidence, but it may be necessary to rely on others to do it for you, scientists, because you can't be an expert in all disciplines. Richard Dawkins is not an expert in particle physics, but he probably accepts the science on quarks, for example. He hasn't done the research, but he knows how science works, and that, yeah, atoms are probably, based on the research, made up of quarks or whatever, subatomic particles. You can't be an expert in all disciplines, so you have to rely on others to do the work for you. Yeah, but you don't just blindly rely on it. You find out that you've got confidence in the peer review process, how science works, and the proven reliability of scientific method. Okay, and then she says, if you get a lot of them together who all agree, does that make it real? And I reply, no, it does not make it real. One needs to look at the claims, evidence presented, how they arrived at their conclusions. One cannot generalize about these things. If you give me an example, I can look into it and decide if it's likely to be real or not. So she's generalizing all the time. She's trying to muddy the waters and say, oh, it's just a gray area, so I can believe the bullshit I want to believe because you believe in science. You've got faith in science. I can believe in tree spirits. No, we've got good grounds for believing in scientific claims. No grounds for believing that tree spirits are real. Oh, my God. Oh, such a nice lady, but she believes such crazy things, and her worldview is just way off the charts. But that's not the worst of it. What's the worst of it is her dishonesty. Okay, and then I go on to give some examples. Did Hitler live and wage war and kill millions of people? Yes, I'm very confident in the truth of this. Did Jesus live, was crucified and resurrected? I'm only fairly confident about two of these claims. The resurrection claim I doubt to a very high degree. It comes back to my point, just because we can't have certainty about anything does not mean we can't be rationally justified in holding certain beliefs. We have to be as a matter of necessity. False beliefs can be dangerous to hold, so we need a reliable method of determining whether a claim is likely to be true or false. Well, that's quite a lesson for her in my epistemological method. And I think I've defeated her. I've defeated all her points. Now, here's what she says, and this is the dishonesty of people who believe in this kind of thing. Oh dear Stuart, if you read back, I was just winding you up. I even said so. What I said about science was directly related to resurrection. Forget it. If you go back and look at all the claims that she made and everything, do you think she was just trying to wind me up? I don't think so. I think that I destroyed all her idiotic, irrational worldview. And she's come back and said, I was just joking. And we've heard this from theists as well. I've heard it from theists, woo believers, that when you start breaking down all their positions, they say, oh, I'm just playing devil's advocate. I was just joking anyway. And, forget it all. Okay, and then there was something else. Just one more thing. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Then she says, I've always had my... Sorry, my PC was running out of power. Let me just finish this video. Yeah. So she says, explaining, because when she said, oh, I was just joking, I said, well, you're into shamanism, you've got staff, you seem to believe in a lot of these stuff. So, I thought you were being real. I took you at your word. It didn't seem to me like you were joking. And then she said, well, I've always had my feet firmly rooted in nature. So I am much happier with the Druid narrative, especially as the minister came round one evening. She's giving an anecdote. Forget that. Yeah. Okay. Well, actually, I'll read that. I had been doing Bible classes to please my mother. She was 18, and he had read an essay. I said something along the theory of omnipresence. He said to my mother that I was going downwards, off to hell. He was a character, but it was extremely hurtful to someone who was more or less good. So I decided that Jesus was right. The religious leaders were not to be trusted, and not to get involved with religious organizations. Well, yeah, I mean, fair enough. But so she could have been sitting in church singing hymns and praising Jesus. And now she's sitting with a group of shamans who summon various nature gods at the start of every meeting by banging drums and shaking tambourines. And so, I mean, now she's doing that and she's not worshipping Jesus. I don't really see that there's much difference. She's just gone from one crazy set of beliefs to another. And then she says, yeah, let me just, yeah, she says she's had too many coincidences and shared mysterious experiences to be an atheist. Well, I mean, obviously atheism just addresses belief in God, so... yeah, okay, this is the critical part. I'm happy to sit on the fence and keep an open mind. Well, I don't really think so. I can't believe in nothing and don't worship science either. It really can't prove everything. Seeing, experiencing is believing. Well, no, it's not, because you can see something and it cannot be real. It could be a mirage. You could have a hallucination. Seeing and experiencing does not always make something true. One could do a drug trip and think you've seen God, and that's seeing and experiencing. Have you really seen God? Maybe yes, maybe no. So I disagree with her there. You need to evaluate the evidence. It may well be that you can't evaluate the evidence. Like a drug trip, you'll never be able to prove that you've seen God or haven't seen God. And, that's sort of something that science can't demonstrate. But if you can't demonstrate the truth of it through science, then really you've got no justification for believing that it's true. So anyway, here's how I respond to her. Whatever exists in the material world is the business of science. Anything beyond that, if there is anything at all, science is of no use. Claims that mystical forces exist, if these are testable claims, such as dowsing, can be scientifically tested. Other claims, such as that nature spirits can be appealed to for energizing the soul or whatever, are untestable. When people say to me, you have to believe in something, meaning something spiritual, my reply is, no, you don't. The wonders in existence, those I can be sure of by my senses, are sufficient for me. I see no need to believe in anything which is not evidently true by the evidence. But I respect your worldview. We are all different. And then I just go on to say, atheist means not believing in God. There are atheists who believe in New Age mystical stuff like chakras and auras, etc. Yeah, anyway, so that's it. What disappoints me most about that whole exchange is her dishonesty in presenting all this stuff, pushing back against science, trying to imply there's some kind of conspiracy, and then me laboriously rebutting the whole lot and breaking it down, and her saying, oh, Stuart, it doesn't matter. I was just being devil's advocate. I didn't really mean any of it. I even said so. I was just winding you up. Rubbish. Rubbish. You've got a staff which you believe has magical powers. Rubbish. You believe in all this stuff. At least be honest about it. And at least if you believe in that, there's a conspiracy of scientists And if you believe in all that, at least be honest about it. And then when I rebut it and break it down, don't come back and say, oh, I was just joking, Stuart. You know, let's be friends. What a load of nonsense. It's a shame. I'm disappointed in her because, you know, I don't like that kind of dishonesty. I really don't. If somebody, at least be honest in the points that you're presenting, and don't, you know, don't turn around and say, oh, I was just joking, I'm just being devil's advocate. Be honest about what you believe in and try and defend it, as I do. Okay, well, that's all for now. I'm sure that loads of you guys, I've even read some of your anecdotes in the comments where you've got friends who are Christians or woo believers, and you've had to push back just in the way that I've had to push back and clarify and distance myself from a lot of this nonsense. Look forward to your comments. Bye for now.